I am 46 years old, and every morning I wake up grateful because I am winning in ways that I never thought was ever possible. I mean, I got a family, a home, two cars in the driveway, and a career to prove how far I have come in my life. Now, if you're watching this video and you have been posting nothing but negative videos on YouTube, that you're living with home with your parents, you can't find work, you can't do this, you can't do that, and you're feeling limited, then this video is for you. If not, go watch the other 799 videos that I have on my channel. Growing up for me was never easy. It was hard. I basically grew up with one parent until I was about 13 years old. And then I inherited a stepdad who now I call dad. And me and my stepdad still communicate and we still have a good relationship. Unfortunately, my mom had passed away a few years ago and we weren't on talking terms. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. The video is going to be about how you can overcome feeling like you're a loser. We'll go back to when I was in middle school. We'll even go back before middle school. I struggled with school. I had a learning disability and I struggled with my studies. I hated studying. I hated going to school. Lord knows I hated doing homework. It was a struggle for me to sit down with my mom and do my homework because I absolutely hated it. I mean, what kid likes doing homework? None that I know of. I know my two kids don't like doing homework. And I'm sure if I ask them, they will tell me the same thing, that they don't like doing it. And with that being said, I remember my 7th and 8th grade year of middle school. And when you do those assessment tests and they sit you down and you got to circle those little friggin' bubbles on those tests, every time I took those tests, I did very poorly. I did terrible because I just never applied myself. I never applied myself in school at all. When something looked hard and it really wasn't, that's how my brain always thought. Now, after being diagnosed with having a learning disability when I was younger, it might have been when I was like between the ages of 9 to 13, a lot had said that it was because I just didn't want to try. And they may have been right. Maybe I just didn't want to try. And I just felt like everything was too rough. Sometimes I still get that way. If I see an email that looks overwhelming or I see a spreadsheet that's overwhelming, sometimes I almost want to shut down and just be like, you know what, this is too much. I can't handle this. I need help. But I learned throughout my life to try and tackle things without thinking about how hard it's going to be before I even do it. I mean, I still do it. It still happens. I don't know if that's part of my learning disability, you know, but I feel like now that I'm older, I just feel like it was because I just didn't apply myself the way I should have back in grade school. And during those assessment tests that I was taking, between my 7th and 8th grade year, I'll never forget it. The guidance counselor sat down with my mom and they said, "We're worried about your son. We don't think your son is going to amount to anything. And they didn't say it in those words. Keep in mind, I graduated in 1998. So when I was in grade school in the mid 80s, things were different back then. You can say certain things, you can get away with certain things. I mean, hell, I was in third and fourth grade and I was wrestling with my teacher. They would pick you up and body slam you on the desk. They would roughhouse with you. You cannot do that now. Times were different then. So the choice of words, I'm sure, were different. I'm guessing it was more professional, but who knows? But basically, they were just saying that your son's going to be a loser and he's not going to get a good paying job when he gets out of school. And think about being a kid and hearing that, because I did know that. That was shared with me. Now, I'm not downing anybody who does a particular job, but I'm not going to mention the jobs, but they were jobs back then that, were classified as jobs you wouldn't want to have because you would just be busting your ass for the rest of your life, and that's all you would be good for is to do that type of work. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. A lot of those jobs pay better than what I'm getting paid right now, believe it or not. But anyway, you understand what I'm saying, don't you? I'm sure you catch what I'm saying. But it wasn't until I was like 18 or 19 years old that I wanted to think smarter with my brain instead of working harder. You ever hear that saying, work smarter, not harder? 18, 19 years old, wanted to be a veterinarian, and that didn't pan out well. I was in 12th grade, and I was pretty sure I wanted to be a veterinarian or at least a vet tech because I love animals, right? It wasn't until my senior year that I decided, you know what, Sam, you can't do this. We had a career day, and I had to euthanize a rat. It was either a rat or a mouse. Pretty sure it was a rat. But you had to practice euthanasia, euthanizing an animal. And at that point, I knew that being a veterinarian or even a vet tech just wasn't my jam. It just wasn't going to happen for me. And then I almost flunked out my senior year in animal science. That's what I took. I went to a technical school. So from 9th to 12th, I went to a tech school. Everybody called me, they call people that go to techies. Oh, you go to tech like you were a badass or something like that. Like, it was just something in the 90s that if you went to tech, you were considered a badass. You got labeled. Oh, you go to tech, like you would just get this look and they would, whisper and, shit like that. That's just the way it was. You're, techie, tech. You went to tech. So I almost flunked out of my senior year because one of the final exams was that you can see where I'm going to go with this once I tell you. My shop teacher, Mr. Fessick, I'll never forget his name. It was just a simple name to remember. Handed everybody in the class a glove. You had a rubber glove. And with that rubber glove, you had to put the rubber glove on and you had to do something with your finger with a dog. And you had to relieve a gland in the dog. I'm trying to say this so I don't get demonetized on this video or I don't get any kind of strikes or anything like that. But you can probably understand where I'm going with this with a finger and a rubber glove. And I refuse to do it. That point on, I knew that I could still like animals. I just could not do it for a career. So now if our animals ever have any issues, I might know what it is, or I might, have some kind of light bulb in my head, but I'm taking the dog to the vet. I'm taking the cat to the vet if I need to. I'm not putting a rubber glove on. So at that point in my life, I was always into electronics. I loved electronics. So I went to a technical school. I went to CHI Institute, and that was a school for computers. And I took engineering, which was a 2-year course, and a lot of electrical engineering was involved. A lot of schematics, diagrams, a ton of math, and I suck at math, right? Right? I'm in loan services and I suck at math, right? You're gonna see what I'm going with this, and I hate numbers, but I'm in banking, right? Go figure. But keep listening because there's gonna be a point to this video. There's definitely gonna be a point. So I sucked at numbers, did not like numbers. So I basically, within 3 or 4 months into the engineering course, I dropped. I'm like, I just can't do this. Anything to do with math, I was failing those tests because I just couldn't do it. Other classmates tried to show me, I just couldn't do it. So I went into computer repair and I knew a lot about computers. In my teens, I ripped computers apart and I put them back together and I fixed them because that was fun for me. I blew a couple up, I blew a couple of motherboards up, I blew a couple power supplies up because I didn't ground myself properly, but that's how I learned. I taught myself this. Nobody taught me that. I taught myself this. I taught myself how to rebuild a computer from the ground up with no help. Unfortunately, it was trial and error. And when you're like 16, 17 years old, right, and you have to spend, 100 and some dollars for a new motherboard and a power supply, back then it was super cheap to rebuild a computer. Now it's just cheaper to go out and buy a laptop rather than fix it. Anyway, I completed the 9-month computer repair course and I moved on to my first job, which I didn't do so, well on. I worked for a small shop. I wasn't certified. I wasn't a certified computer technician. So, all the other coworkers that I worked with at, this one job that I had, they were all computer certified. They were techs. And they made pretty good money, and I was just a runner. Like I would take, a scanner, take a power supply, install it, do that kind of shit. That's the kind of stuff that I did because I wasn't certified. So that, they were making the big bucks, running the network cords, running the network, hubs and all that stuff, and the servers and installing the software. I knew how to do all that. I just wasn't certified, so I couldn't do it. Even though I was on the same level as them, I couldn't do it because I didn't have that piece of paper saying Sam's certified to do this. That's just the way it was, unfortunately, right? So I never took the certification, didn't care to. Well, I left that job and it wasn't, and I think I did it for, a couple of months, and I was just like, you know what, this isn't for me. I just need to quit. Found another job. Of course, I always find jobs before I move on to the next. Never, ever leave a job without a backup plan. You just don't want to do it. You always have to have another job lined up before you leave your current job. You just need to do it. That's business 101, right? If you don't know, search it online. That's exactly what you should do. And never burn any bridges down on the way. Trust me. All right, so I found my first professional job as a temp, and I updated tools. They were like these huge machines, and you had to update the software. And back then, we had zip drives. If you don't know what a zip drive is, just Google it. I'm not really going to go into it. But you updated the software, and it was basically digital. It was always ones and zeros. So you had to open it up in a specific file, and then you had to have a 0 and a 1, off, on, depending on what type of tool they had. So each model of the tool had ones and zeros. You just had I think we had guides, if I remember correctly, like a manually flip through. It wasn't something you can look online because remember, this is like late 90s. I graduated in 98, so I think it was like 99, 2000, right? So you had a manual you had to look through. So things were different then. So I left that job because it was temporary. I had no health insurance. right? At that point, I was 18, 19 years old. I had a 401k plan. I had an IRA plan. I had everything lined up. I was putting money away. I was still living at home. I didn't move out of the house till I was about 25, 26 years old, right? That's when I got married and, decided to have my journey. So after I left that job, I went into debt collecting and, was calling people, debtors, consumers that were defaulting on their checking account. They would go in check systems, they'd overdraw their checking account. It was my job to call them and collect money. That wasn't an easy job. So I did that for about 13, 14 years. I would call nursing homes, if you didn't pay an ambulance bill. I even made door visits. I went to the nursing home door, knocked on the door, and, with the transactions showing that, that they owed the ambulance company money. Because there's certain scenarios where the nursing home is on the hook for paying under Medicare Part A if there's an ambulance trip for that patient. I won't get into that, but you can look it up if you don't believe me. But if they had Medicare Part A, the nursing home, depending if they were on medical assistance, would be on the hook as far as paying for it. Well, a lot of times there was an argument going back and forth. Anyway, 14 years, all said and done, I learned a lot at that job. The CEO of the company, the president of the company taught me a lot into business. And then I switched over to banking. That's where I'm at right now. I'm 46 years old. But I knew what I wanted to do when I was 18 or 19 years old. And this is why this is important for you. I would say if you're 25 years or younger, is to sit down and figure out what you really want to do and just do it. It's not hard. I mean, you're talking to somebody who was told in grade school that you would never amount to nothing and that you would never have a good paying job. I mean, damn it, if you want to make six figures and do well for yourself, go out and do it. What's stopping you? Whether it's here on YouTube or it's somewhere else, so be it, right? Because I could fight it all I want. I could fight this all I want, battling as far as people quitting their 9 to 5 to do YouTube. It's not going to change. And there's people that are doing it, and there's people that are doing great. But the point of this video is, I don't want anybody ever to feel like that they're a loser and that they can't do anything. Because I struggled as a kid growing up being told I wasn't going to amount to nothing. And I knew when I was 18 or 19 years old that I wanted to work harder. Well, I should say I wanted to work smarter, not harder. Of course, you have to work hard, because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't work hard. That's actually what I meant. It sounded weird because I always thinking about how hard you always have to work. So that's stuck in my head, always drilled in my head. But I'm 46 years old. I'm hoping to retire in the next 20 years. So if you could figure it out when you're younger, it's going to benefit you. Trust me. If you don't have anybody sitting down with you and telling you this, rewatch this video and watch it again. And keep watching it until you understand exactly what I'm saying here. I'm saying that if I can do it, you can do it. Anybody can do it. There's people out there that are doing it better than me. But keep in mind, they went to college, they got 4-year degrees. They could be doctors, they can be lawyers. I never went to college. I went to a tech school between 9th and 12th grade. I went to CHI. I failed out of electrical engineering course like a dumbass. But I laugh about it when I talk about it now. And then I went, I still stayed within CHI and I did computer repair. And it took, 4 jobs before I, feel at home. Now, keep in mind, yes, this could change one day. I could wake up tomorrow and be laid off. I could be laid off today. You just never know. But I structured myself and built myself to a point where I know I can move on and start over from scratch again if I needed to. And a lot of us are still stuck in that same mindset where we're used to the same routine. I'm living at home, I don't have a job, I'm living at home, I'm doing the same job, I'm doing the same job I don't like. If you don't like your job, then move on, find something else, and keep building off of that. Each job, each experience that you go through is another skill set that you could put under your belt, another notch in your belt. It's something you can add to your resume, and you keep building off of it. I mean, Christ, the job I have right now, I have my resume updated, and I get emails from companies daily. Now, it's not the same exact salary that I'm getting paid now, but of course, anything's negotiable. You can negotiate just about anything. So, my point is never feel like you're a loser and never feel like you just can't pick up the pieces and continue to move on, because you can, and you can change what you are doing in your life. You don't have to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. And if you feel like you're a failure, don't feel that way. What I need you to do is get off your butt and get out there. I will catch you in the next one.